The alien academy was silent when the door opened. The silence was so deep that one could almost hear the distant hum of the ventilation system, the faint scratching of claws against the polished floor, or even the slow breathing of the nervous students who filled the massive hall. Every eye turned to the door as it slid open with a hiss, and there stood a young human. She looked small compared to the towering alien students seated inside. Her frame was slender, and her face carried the calmness of someone trying hard not to show fear. Still, there was a nervous energy about her, like a spark hidden under layers of restraint. She stepped inside slowly, boots tapping against the metallic floor, and the whispers began almost immediately. "Why is a fragile creature here?" one alien whispered in a voice that clicked like dry stone. "She will not last a day," another muttered, its scaled arms crossed, golden eyes narrowing. The Alien Academy had seen students from hundreds of species across the galaxy, each one chosen for strength, intelligence, or skill. But never before had a human been allowed to enter these halls. Humans were considered reckless, unpredictable, and weak. And yet, here she was, a rookie, walking into the heart of an academy known for training some of the deadliest warriors in existence. Her name was not spoken aloud, at least not yet. To the others, she was simply the human. A fragile outsider. A mistake in the order of things. She walked with measured steps, her gaze steady, though she could feel the weight of countless stares pressing against her. Some eyes were curious, others hostile, but most carried the same unspoken thought: prey had wandered into the den of predators. And then, the silence was broken. From the far corner of the academy, a massive predator stirred. The ground itself seemed to tremble as the creature shifted its weight. Its body was covered in thick fur, darker than the shadows that clung to the walls. Its eyes, burning with a golden fire, locked onto the human. This was no ordinary creature, it was an apex predator, a beast feared across worlds, known for its ferocity and its refusal to be tamed. Entire squads of soldiers had failed to control such creatures, and many lives had been lost to their jaws. The students froze. The teachers held their breath. Guards positioned near the walls tightened their grips on their weapons. Everyone expected the same outcome: the predator would attack, the human would fall, and the experiment of allowing such a fragile being into their academy would end before it even began. The predator rose to its full height, muscles shifting beneath its fur like waves of power, and stepped forward. Its claws clicked against the floor, each sound sharp and heavy in the tense silence. The human stopped walking, her heart beating so loudly in her chest that she was sure everyone could hear it. But instead of leaping, instead of tearing her apart, the predator did something no one expected. It lowered its head. The massive beast, feared across galaxies, bowed before the human. The air grew thick with disbelief. No one moved. No one breathed. The girl blinked, uncertain of what had just happened. Her body had gone rigid, prepared for pain, for blood, for death. Instead, she saw the glowing eyes of the predator soften, its head resting almost reverently on the floor before her. A ripple of shock passed through the room. "This is not possible," one alien gasped. "It cannot be real," another whispered, mandibles twitching nervously. The human took a hesitant step forward, her boots making a hollow echo in the vast hall. The predator did not react violently. It remained still, as if waiting. Slowly, she extended her hand, trembling slightly, and touched the thick fur on its head. The predator did not resist. It accepted her touch with a low, rumbling sound that was neither growl nor purr but something in between, a sound that carried loyalty rather than aggression. Gasps echoed around the hall. The teachers exchanged looks of disbelief. The guards looked at each other, uncertain whether to lower their weapons or raise them higher. The alien students leaned forward, their eyes wide, some in fear, some in fascination. And in that moment, one truth became impossible to ignore. The predator had chosen her. Not as prey. Not as a rival. But as something else entirely. The human pulled her hand back slowly, still unsure what she had done to deserve such a reaction. She felt the weight of hundreds of stares burning into her, but she did not look away from the predator. Something passed between them, silent and unseen, but powerful enough to make the air feel heavy with meaning. The predator rose again, towering over her, but its posture was no longer threatening. It moved to her side, standing close enough that its fur brushed against her arm. The beast's gaze shifted to the rest of the academy, and the golden glow in its eyes carried a silent warning: "Harm her, and you will answer to me." A murmur spread through the students. What does this mean? Why would it bow to her? No creature has ever done this. The human walked forward once more, the predator at her side, and the hall parted before her. Aliens who had mocked her moments ago now stepped aside, their expressions a mixture of awe and fear. The teachers whispered among themselves, struggling to make sense of what they had witnessed. They spoke of training, of instincts, of natural law. But nothing explained what had just happened. As she reached the center of the hall, the human stopped and glanced around. She did not speak, but she did not need to. The silence around her was enough. Everyone knew that the balance had shifted. Something had changed the moment she walked through those doors. The apex predator had made its choice. And in doing so, it had challenged everything the galaxy believed about humans. Because if the deadliest predator in the academy could bow to a fragile human, then perhaps humans were not as fragile as everyone believed. Perhaps there was something hidden beneath their skin, something that even monsters recognized. The whispers began again, spreading like wildfire. Why her? What is she? What will happen next? But none of them knew the answer. Not yet. The human stood silently, the predator by her side, as the weight of destiny pressed down on her shoulders. She had not come to the academy seeking power or glory. She had come to learn, to prove herself. But now, whether she wanted it or not, her journey had already begun to shape legends. And in the shadows, where even the bravest dared not look for long, the academy's leaders watched with narrowed eyes. They did not see a rookie anymore. They saw the beginning of something dangerous. Something that could not be explained. The girl had arrived. The predator had chosen her. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The news of what had happened inside the academy spread faster than light. Students whispered in the corridors, their voices low but urgent, carrying fragments of the story. Some said the predator had been tricked, others swore it had been forced, but none could deny what they had seen with their own eyes. The apex predator had lowered its head before a human rookie, and from that moment forward it did not leave her side. The academy was a place where only the strongest were meant to thrive. Each species sent their best warriors, their brightest minds, and their most disciplined heirs to prove themselves worthy of survival. The predator was supposed to be a test, a constant reminder of danger, a beast that no one could control. And yet now, that same beast followed the human girl through the halls like a shadow. Wherever she went, the predator went. Its golden eyes scanned every corner, every student, every guard. When someone stepped too close to her, its low growl sent them retreating instantly. No one dared to challenge it, and no one dared to challenge her anymore either. At first, the human did not understand. She walked cautiously, still nervous under the weight of so many stares, unsure why the creature had chosen her. She had not spoken to it, had not trained it, had not earned its trust through combat or dominance. It had simply bowed, as if something deep inside it recognized her. And now, it stood by her like a guardian. The teachers were unsettled. The academy had strict rules, and no student was ever meant to bring a weapon or an ally into training. Yet the predator refused to be moved. Attempts were made, guards with stun rifles tried to drag it away, containment fields were activated, even sonic pulses were unleashed. But nothing worked. The predator did not fight them, but it would not leave her. When the girl raised her hand and touched its fur, the beast calmed instantly, as if her presence alone was its command. The council of instructors gathered in secret chambers, their voices heavy with concern. "This is not normal," one of them hissed, its many eyes blinking rapidly. "Predators bow to no one. This is not control. This is something else." Another, older teacher leaned forward, his scaled hands clasped tightly. "It is not the predator we should fear," he said quietly. "It is the human." The students, meanwhile, reacted in their own ways. Some avoided her completely, choosing to keep their distance rather than risk attracting the predator's attention. Others watched her with fascination, curious to see if the bond was real. A few, however, felt anger burning inside them. They had trained their whole lives to earn respect in this academy, and now one fragile human, barely strong enough to lift a blade, had gained the loyalty of a creature they all feared. The girl herself remained quiet. She did not boast, did not taunt, did not even smile at the attention. She simply moved forward, doing her best to keep up with lessons, while the predator followed her silently. But she could feel the tension growing. Every time she stepped into the training grounds, eyes followed her. Every time she walked the corridors, whispers chased her footsteps. And in the silence of her own thoughts, a question gnawed at her: why me? The predator's presence did not make her feel powerful. It made her feel heavier, as if a responsibility had been placed on her shoulders that she had never asked for. But every time she looked into its eyes, she saw no threat there, only a strange, deep recognition. It was as if the predator understood her better than anyone else in the academy. The teachers eventually allowed her to continue her training, though always under heavy observation. Guards followed from a distance, ready to intervene if the predator lost control. But the creature never attacked. It never growled without reason. It moved with purpose, and its purpose was always the same: protect the human. One evening, as the sun sank behind the jagged alien mountains outside the academy, the human sat quietly on the training grounds. The predator lay beside her, its massive body curled protectively at her side. She could feel the warmth of its fur, the slow rise and fall of its breathing. Around them, the shadows stretched long, and in those shadows, alien students watched silently. None dared approach. And as night settled, one truth became clear to all who had seen it with their own eyes: the predator had not been tamed. It had chosen. And that choice meant more than anyone yet understood. The whispers that had filled the academy soon reached far beyond its walls. Word of the predator's choice traveled from student to teacher, from teacher to guard, and then up to the ears of the Galactic Council itself. It was not long before entire fleets of ships were buzzing with the same question: why would the most dangerous predator in the galaxy bow to a human? The council was a gathering of species so old and powerful that most students in the academy had only ever seen their likeness carved in stone. They were leaders, rulers, and keepers of order across countless worlds. When they received the report, they summoned the instructors of the academy without delay. The instructors tried to explain. They spoke of how the predator had never been trained, how it had never obeyed any order before this moment. They told the council how stun weapons and force fields had failed, how the predator had ignored every attempt to separate it from the human. And finally, they described how the beast had lowered its head, an act of loyalty or submission that no one could explain. The council chamber was vast, lit by cold white lights that reflected off polished metal floors. Shadows stretched along the walls as the members leaned forward in their high seats. Some scoffed, others grew uneasy. A few simply remained silent, their eyes fixed on the holographic image of the young human girl with the predator at her side. "This is impossible," one voice said, deep and vibrating. "Predators like this do not submit. They kill. They destroy. This human must have used some trick." "Or perhaps," another voice replied, sharp and calm, "we have underestimated the nature of her species." The word human echoed through the chamber. It was not spoken with respect but with suspicion. Humans were not trusted. Their worlds were considered chaotic, their people impulsive. They were often dismissed as reckless beings who stumbled through survival rather than mastering it. And yet, now one of them stood at the center of a mystery no scholar could explain. Back at the academy, the human girl remained unaware of the storm her presence had caused. She moved through her days quietly, studying the same lessons as the other students, practicing in the same training arenas. But unlike the others, she was never alone. The predator followed her into every hall, every room, every test. Its presence unsettled her classmates. No one dared challenge her in combat drills, and when teams were assigned for exercises, whispers turned into protests. "She does not fight alone," some students argued. "She does not need to," others muttered. And so, isolation grew around her. Where others had allies and friends, she had the predator. Where others laughed and shared meals, she sat in silence with golden eyes watching over her. She felt the weight of distance pressing harder each day, but she did not complain. What troubled her more than the silence of her peers was the silence of the predator itself. It never spoke, of course, but its actions told her things she could not explain. When she was afraid, it stepped closer. When she doubted herself, it nudged her gently with its head, as though to remind her she was not weak. And when she trained, it watched her with a focus so sharp that it felt almost human. One night, as the stars burned brightly over the academy, she dreamed. In her dream, she stood on a battlefield she had never seen, surrounded by fire and shadows. The predator was there, standing beside her, its fur glowing faintly in the light of flames. She did not feel fear in that dream, only a strange certainty, as though the predator's presence meant she belonged exactly where she stood. When she woke, the beast was lying near her bed, golden eyes watching her as though it, too, had seen the dream. Far away, in the council chamber, the debate continued. Some called for her removal, fearing she was a danger. Others demanded to study her, to dissect what made her different. And a few warned against interfering at all. One old council member spoke last, his voice soft but carrying weight across the hall. If a predator chooses a human, he said, then perhaps it sees what we cannot. Perhaps it sees what we have refused to see. This may be a warning, or it may be the beginning of something far greater. The chamber fell into silence after his words. And though no decision was made that night, a new thought began to spread among the council, one that unsettled even the oldest of them. What if humanity, a species they had dismissed for so long, carried something within them that even predators respected? And what if that truth was only just beginning to reveal itself? The Academy decided that the mystery could not remain unanswered. If the predator truly chose the human, then it had to be tested. No bond could be trusted unless it was proven under pressure. The instructors spoke in hushed voices as they planned the trial, and the news spread quickly among the students. By the next morning, the entire Academy knew what was about to happen. The human girl was summoned to the central arena, a vast chamber built for combat demonstrations. Its walls were tall and fortified, designed to withstand the most violent clashes between species. Lights blazed down from above, and the floor shimmered faintly with the energy of containment fields. The predator walked beside her as always, its steps slow but steady, golden eyes unblinking. Around the arena, students filled the seats, their voices rising in a wave of anticipation. Some expected the human to fail, to be exposed as a fraud. Others hoped for a miracle, to see with their own eyes that what had happened in the hall was not a trick. The instructors stood above, watching closely, their expressions unreadable. The test began with a low rumble that shook the floor. From a gate on the far side, another predator was released. It was smaller than the one that followed her, but still massive compared to the human. Its claws scraped against the floor, and its growl echoed like thunder. This creature had not been tamed. It had not been calmed. It was wild, furious, and hungry. The human felt her chest tighten as the beast locked its eyes on her. She could almost feel the weight of its hunger pressing against her skin. She did not reach for a weapon, she had none. She only stood, uncertain, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Beside her, the predator she already knew gave a low, rumbling growl. The sound was deep and sharp, filled with authority. The smaller beast hesitated, claws digging into the ground. The golden-eyed predator stepped forward, placing itself between the human and the challenger. Its fur bristled, and its teeth gleamed in the bright lights as it roared. The sound shook the arena. The smaller predator recoiled, its body trembling. It did not attack. It did not lunge. Instead, it lowered its head, backing away slowly until it pressed itself against the far wall, unwilling to challenge the larger beast. The audience gasped. Whispers raced across the arena like fire. The human had done nothing, and yet the predator had defended her with a devotion that no one could explain. Even more shocking was the reaction of the smaller beast. Predators did not retreat. They fought. They tore their enemies apart. But this one had bowed to the command of another, and the command had been made to protect a human. The instructors exchanged glances. Some were pale, their jaws tight with unease. Others leaned forward, unable to hide their fascination. One of them whispered, "It is not instinct. It is not fear. This is loyalty." The human stood frozen, staring at the predator's back as it shielded her from danger. She had not asked for protection. She had not spoken a word. And yet the beast acted as if her safety was its only purpose. Slowly, she raised her hand and touched the thick fur again. The predator turned its head slightly, golden eyes meeting hers, and she felt a strange connection pass through her. A wordless bond. When the test ended, the smaller predator was guided back through the gate, still trembling. The human and her guardian remained in the center of the arena, surrounded by silence. For a long moment, no one spoke. No one knew how to describe what they had just witnessed. And then, The whispers began again. What is she? Why does the predator serve her? This is more than luck, more than chance. The instructors dismissed the students, but the whispers did not stop. That night, the academy was alive with rumors. Some believed the girl carried hidden power. Others said she was dangerous, a threat that should be contained. But deep down, all of them felt the same thing, fear mixed with awe. For the first time, the students of the academy began to wonder if the predator had not chosen her by mistake. Perhaps it had seen something in her that no one else could. And perhaps, just perhaps, she was not as fragile as they had all believed. The story of the human and the predator grew into something larger than whispers. By the 5th day, it had become legend within the academy's walls. Students spoke of it in the dining halls, in the training yards, and in the quiet shadows of the dormitories. They tried to explain it in their own ways, some through science, others through fear, but none of their words carried certainty. It was during one of these quiet evenings, when the twin moons cast silver light across the academy courtyards, that the whispers turned into something more. A group of alien students sat huddled together, their voices low, retelling an ancient legend. The human, walking nearby, paused when she heard the tone of their voices. She stayed in the shadows, listening. The legend spoke of a race long forgotten. A race not of warriors, not of monsters, but of beings who carried something within them that no weapon could match. They were said to be fragile in body but powerful in spirit, able to command loyalty without chains, able to bend the wildest creatures with nothing more than presence. No one knew if the story was real, or just another myth told to frighten children. But now, as the aliens whispered, their eyes flicked toward the human girl and the predator always at her side. She fits the story, one of them muttered, mandibles clacking nervously. It cannot be true, another replied, though its voice trembled. And yet you saw it, the first said. The beast bowed. The beast fought for her. No training. No command. It chose. The human felt a chill run through her. She stepped away quietly, pretending she had not heard, but the words clung to her mind. A legend. A forgotten race. Loyalty without chains. Was that what they thought of her? Was that what the predator had seen? The predator itself gave no answer. As always, it walked silently beside her, its heavy steps steady, its eyes sharp. She wished it could speak, so she could ask why it had chosen her. But in its silence, there was only mystery. The whispers grew louder in the days that followed. Some students began to treat her differently. A few looked at her with respect now, though their respect was mixed with unease. Others looked at her with jealousy, convinced she had stolen something they deserved. And then there were those who looked at her with fear, as if she carried a secret that might consume them all. The instructors, too, could not ignore the growing tension. They called secret meetings, reviewing the legend that had begun to surface among the students. Old texts were brought from archives, faded with time, describing humans in ways that none of them had believed before. Words like bond, spirit, unbreakable appeared again and again, written in the languages of species long extinct. The council was informed once more, and this time, the word legend was spoken aloud within their chamber. Many dismissed it as foolishness. But a few, older and wiser, leaned back in their seats and said nothing. Silence, in that chamber, was more troubling than anger. The human herself remained quiet, but she could not push the whispers away. Every time she looked at the predator, she wondered if there was truth in the legend. Every time she felt its gaze, steady and unblinking, she wondered if she was walking a path she did not yet understand. One night, when the academy was still and the stars burned bright overhead, she sat outside with the predator resting beside her. She whispered softly, her voice breaking the silence. "Why me?" The predator lifted its head. Its golden eyes glowed faintly in the starlight. It said nothing, but its gaze was answer enough. It had chosen her. And that choice was no mistake. Far above, on distant worlds, powerful beings debated her existence. In the academy, students wrestled with fear and fascination. And in her heart, she felt the first threads of something she could not name, a destiny woven not by her will, but by the silent loyalty of a creature feared by all. The legend was no longer just a story. It was alive. And she was standing at the center of it. Not everyone in the academy was willing to accept what they had seen. 4 days, the whispers of the legend spread like fire, and with each retelling, the human's name was spoken with more weight. Some students looked at her with awe, others with unease, but one alien in particular looked at her with something sharper, resentment. He was tall and broad, a member of a species bred for battle. His claws were curved, his skin plated with natural armor, and his eyes burned with pride. He had trained his entire life to prove himself at the academy. He had shed blood in the training pits, endured endless trials, and earned respect through strength. Yet now, all eyes had shifted to a human, a fragile creature who had done nothing but walk into the academy and be chosen by a beast. To him, it was an insult. To him, it was a lie. The challenge came during the midday training session, in front of hundreds of students. The arena floor shimmered with the heat of containment fields as he stepped forward, his voice booming across the chamber. "This is a fraud," he shouted, pointing a clawed hand toward the human. "That predator obeys her because it has been tricked. She hides behind it because she has no strength of her own. Let her prove herself without the beast. Let her stand against me." The students gasped. Whispers raced through the crowd. All eyes turned to the human girl, who stood silently at the center of the arena, the predator at her side. She felt the weight of the alien's words pressing down on her, but she did not move. The predator growled, low and dangerous, its fur bristling as it stepped between her and the challenger. The instructors hesitated, watching closely. Some looked ready to intervene, but others remained still. They wanted to see what would happen. The challenger smirked, his armored chest rising and falling with every breath. "See, she is nothing without it. A coward hiding behind an animal." The predator's growl deepened, vibrating through the floor. Its golden eyes locked onto the challenger, and the air itself seemed to tremble with its anger. But before the predator could move, the human raised her hand. The sound stopped. The growl faded instantly, as if cut off by an invisible command. The predator froze in place, its head turning slightly toward her, waiting. The entire arena went silent, the weight of the moment pressing down on every living being within those walls. She stepped forward, past the predator's massive frame, and faced the challenger herself. Her voice was calm, steady, though her heart thundered in her chest. "I do not need to prove myself to you," she said. "But if you want to test me, then test me. Not my guardian." The crowd erupted with whispers, disbelief rippling through the students like a wave. The challenger's eyes narrowed, and for a moment he seemed almost uncertain. But then his pride returned, and he bared his claws with a snarl. The duel began. He charged forward with speed and fury, his claws slashing through the air. The human moved quickly, narrowly avoiding the strike, her heart racing. She had trained, but never against something this powerful. Each swing of his claws came close enough to tear her apart, but she ducked, rolled, and twisted, her body fueled by instinct and fear. The predator growled again, muscles tensing, ready to leap. But once more, the human raised her hand without looking back. "Stay." And it stayed. The fight dragged on, the challenger growing more frustrated with every miss. The human was not stronger than him, not faster, but she was unpredictable. She moved with a rhythm he could not anticipate, surviving where she should have fallen. The students watched in awe, the instructors leaned forward, and even the guards at the edges of the arena held their breath. At last, the challenger lunged with all his strength, his claws arcing toward her. The human dropped low at the last moment, sweeping her leg across the floor. His footing broke, his massive frame crashing to the ground. The arena shook with the impact, dust rising in the air. Before he could recover, the predator roared, a thunderous sound that shook the walls. It did not move to kill, but its voice carried a warning so powerful that the challenger froze where he lay. The human stood over him, her chest heaving, sweat dripping down her brow. She had not won through strength, but through resolve, and the predator had honored her choice to face the challenge alone. Silence filled the arena. Then, slowly, the whispers began again. She stopped it with one word. "The beast obeys her, even against its nature. She is not prey. She is something else." The challenger rose, shame burning in his eyes. He did not speak again. The human turned back to the predator, and once more their eyes met. In that look, silent and unbroken, the bond between them was clear to all. She was not just a girl protected by a beast. She was something more. And for the first time, the Academy began to understand that her presence was not an accident. It was the beginning of a change none of them were ready to face. The days after the duel changed the atmosphere of the Academy in ways no one expected. The human girl was no longer just a curiosity. She had become a subject of fascination, respect, and unease. Some students now walked with their heads bowed when she passed, afraid of the predator's golden eyes watching from her side. Others followed her quietly, whispering about what she might do next. But what none of them noticed was how the instructors were watching her too. Every gesture, every word, every moment she spent with the predator was studied in silence. Reports were sent to the higher councils, to generals and leaders who demanded to know why the galaxy's deadliest beast had bowed before a fragile human. One evening, she sat alone in the Academy courtyard. The sky above shimmered with strange alien constellations, and the predator lay beside her like a mountain of fur and muscle. Its slow, steady breathing was the only sound, but her mind was far from calm. She remembered the duel, the eyes of the challenger burning with rage, the gasps of the students when she stopped the predator with a single word. She wondered if she had done the right thing, stepping forward when she could have let the beast defend her. The predator shifted, raising its head to look at her. Its gaze was steady, unblinking, as if it could feel the storm in her thoughts. She reached out, brushing her hand against its fur. "You chose me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But I don't know why." The predator made no sound, yet something in its eyes seemed to answer her. It was not submission. It was not fear. It was recognition. The silence of the night did not last. A shadow appeared at the edge of the courtyard. It was one of the senior instructors, his tall frame casting a long shape across the stone floor. His voice was calm, but there was a weight in it that made her stand quickly. "You are summoned," he said. "The council wishes to see you." Her heart skipped. She glanced at the predator, who rose immediately, standing at her side like a guardian ready for war. Together, they followed the instructor through winding halls until they reached a chamber unlike any she had seen before. The walls were lined with shimmering symbols, ancient and powerful, glowing faintly in the dim light. Around a vast circular table sat figures of different species, leaders, warriors, scholars. Their eyes turned toward her as she entered, some filled with curiosity, others with suspicion. The instructor bowed and stepped aside. One of the council members, an elder with silver markings across his face, spoke first. "Human," he said slowly, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Do you understand what has happened?" She hesitated. I only know that the predator chose me. I didn't force it. I didn't plan it. It just happened." Murmurs spread across the council. Some nodded, others frowned. Another voice rose, sharper this time. "Do you realize what this means? That beast has slaughtered armies. Entire worlds have feared it for generations. And yet it bows to you. Do you understand the danger of that bond?" The human swallowed hard. She had no answer. Then the predator moved. Slowly, deliberately, it stepped forward until its massive frame stood beside her, its golden eyes sweeping across the council. It did not snarl, it did not roar, but the sheer presence of its gaze silenced the entire chamber. It lowered its head, not to the council, but to her. Gasps echoed. The elders leaned back, some clutching at the table as if to steady themselves. The meaning was undeniable. The human girl stood there, small and fragile, yet in that moment, every being in the room understood the truth. The bond between predator and human was not a mistake. It was not an accident. It was destiny. And destiny had just shifted the balance of the galaxy. The chamber stayed frozen in silence long after the predator bowed its head. The human girl could feel the weight of 100 eyes pressing against her, judging her, questioning her, and perhaps fearing her. She did not know what to say, nor did she truly understand why the predator had chosen her. But deep inside, she felt something growing, a bond that was no longer fragile, no longer uncertain. The eldest council member finally broke the silence. His voice was low, careful, yet heavy with meaning. "The galaxy has always known this creature as a destroyer. Yet before us, it kneels to you. If that is true, then you are no longer just a student. You are the key to something greater." His words rippled through the council like a storm. Some voices rose in protest. "It is dangerous. The beast cannot be trusted," shouted one. "She is manipulating it," cried another. But others whispered words of awe. "Perhaps this is what we have waited for," one murmured. Perhaps the legends were true. The human stood there, listening to every word, her heart pounding harder with each breath. She wanted to shout that she was just a girl, that she never asked for any of this. But the predator's presence at her side made the truth impossible to deny. She was not just a girl anymore. She was something more, whether she wished it or not. The council argued deep into the night, but no decision was reached. At last, the instructor who had brought her here touched her shoulder and led her away. The halls felt colder now, the shadows deeper, but the predator walked close, each step shaking the floor as if to remind her she was never alone. When they reached the courtyard again, the alien stars burned brightly above. The predator lay down beside her, its golden eyes reflecting the light of distant suns. She sat quietly, staring up at the endless sky, her thoughts tangled with fear and wonder. "What happens now?" she whispered into the night. The predator gave no answer, only resting its massive head near her feet. Yet in its silence, she felt a strange kind of reassurance, as if it knew something she did not. Far beyond the academy walls, in the vast stretches of the galaxy, rumors had already begun to spread. Whispers carried from world to world, of a human child who commanded the loyalty of a destroyer, of a bond that could change the balance of power across the stars. Some feared her. Some wanted her destroyed. And some wanted her found. The human did not yet know what paths awaited her, what choices she would be forced to make, or what dangers would rise to test her. But in that quiet moment, beneath alien constellations, she understood one thing with absolute certainty. The predator had chosen her. And because of that choice, the galaxy would never be the same again.